Hi, I'm Jo Hamer, the owner of the Curvatures Boutique. In our last video, we looked at the 3 levels of self: the self of who you are, the higher self, and the self of infinite possibilities. We also looked at some of the archetypes that could limit us reaching these possibilities. To continue on this journey of self-discovery, this video is going to be looking at fear and limiting beliefs and how to overcome them. Now, the definition of fear is an unpleasant emotion caused by the threat of danger, pain, or harm. And the definition of a limiting belief is your brain's way of protecting you from future pain. So these can occur as a result of experiencing something negative in your past, a trauma that triggers an emotional response. It could even be that you witness something traumatic happening to someone else, but you've interpreted this as a potential threat. So in order to protect you from potential harm in the future, a limiting belief is created. Let's look at an example. Throughout my secondary school education, I was bullied about my weight. I was taught by my mum to be the bigger person and walk away from any conflict and rise above it. Now, this wasn't to protect me, and it's only from reflection in my adult years that I can see that this was because my mum maybe feared confrontation because of a trauma from her own experience. So it's almost like a transference of a limiting belief. My mum experienced some form of bullying from within her own family. So in order to protect herself, she may have avoided certain conversations or interactions in order to avoid potential conflict. If her siblings were mean to her, she didn't stand up for herself, which she then went on maybe to develop a lack of self-esteem and confidence, and that could have led in her later years to not being able to learn how to drive, not having the confidence to proceed with it, not having the confidence to reach her potential in a career. She could have gone on to have been an amazing teacher, but she never believed in herself, never felt good enough, never had the confidence to stand in her own power. She became estranged from her family by choice, which is the ultimate way of avoiding any further conflict. She married, had 3 children, and unfortunately the marriage broke down. She never moved on to have another relationship, which could also have been a way of avoiding any future pain. So a limiting belief of you don't need a man could have been formed. In raising her children, she instilled the notion of avoiding conflict by rising above it and walking away, so that you're the bigger person. Apart from primary school and the first year at secondary school, I was bullied every year I was in education. I hated school. I hated the fact that I had no confidence to stand up for myself and just allowed people to get away with the things that they said and did. Once I did try to stand my ground, but I wasn't confident or assertive enough to succeed, and I came worse off. From the influence of my mum and my own experience, I developed a fear of being on my own around a group of people, feeling like I needed people to talk to me so that I didn't look like I was on my own. I felt really vulnerable, exposed, almost like a target. I also developed an avoidance tactic. I would avoid certain areas of the school at break and lunch, and I would then put my head down and study really hard in order to avoid the conflict. If confrontations rose, I wouldn't retaliate. I would walk away, and I would have a horrible feeling in the pit of my stomach that was associated with this experience. That went on to become associated with music and certain songs. So when I hear specific songs from that time, it takes me back to that stomach kind of feeling and just feeling really horrible. So really and truly, I feared the unknown with all of that circumstance. I can always remember having a need to be liked, and I had developed limiting beliefs like I wasn't strong enough to stand up for myself, so it's just best to avoid certain people and not go to certain places. And if I was on my own, I was a target. I was powerless. I wasn't good enough to be accepted in a group. I didn't like being on my own. I felt like I needed people to be around me. Really and truly, was it because I just didn't like who I was at the time? I wish now, looking back, that my mum had influenced me different. I wish that she had given me the strength to step into my power, to fight back if needed, to put people in their place rather than always being intimidated. The wounded child and the inner victim were so strong at this point. When I had a child and he started school, he then went on to become bullied as well. But I was determined to break this pattern. I did not want him to go through what I did. So I taught him different values and built his confidence. I took him to martial arts so that if he ever needed to, he would know how to defend himself. If I had this back then, I would not have allowed people to walk over me the way they did or feel mentally scarred by it all. My confidence and power would have been totally different. Now, the sad aspect to this is that as humans, we can be quite impressionable when we're young and when these limiting beliefs are created, which reinforces them and in turn shapes who we become and how we live our lives. So our first step really is to establish an awareness of what our limiting beliefs are. Now, they could be beliefs around money, love, work, family, health, anything really. So it might be a good idea to write a heading for money, love, work, family and health, so that you could then list what your beliefs are around these areas. Let's take another example, money. I watched my mum raise us kids as a single mum who went out to work, worked hard for a pittance and just about managed to keep a roof over our head. When it came to food, she always made sure we had good food to eat and always had cooked dinners. But I can always remember the shopping trip on a Saturday, catching the bus and carrying all the shopping bags home, and that we were allowed a fizzy drink on a Saturday, 1 packet of crisps a day and a chocolate bar at the weekend. Oh, and a minimal amount of orange juice because it was expensive. At Christmas, that was the only time we had prawns and a Viennetta. Why is it always the little things that we remember the most? As an adult now, if I went into a pub or a restaurant and I had an orange juice, I would feel guilty for having a full glass. I still go buy a packet of crisps a day if I have them in the house, but I can see also the rebellion of overindulging, maybe as a way to get back at her and compensate. This could also be a reason for overeating and becoming a plus size. But we are digressing here. We are meant to be looking at money. So I learnt from watching my mum hard graft that in order to earn a reasonable amount of money, you have to hard graft. You have to work long hours and possibly have multiple jobs. There was always the feeling that money doesn't grow on trees. Don't waste it, save it, and money doesn't make you happy. Money and happiness could be connected to jealousy for what others have. But the others you can see is living in a lack of it. It doesn't grow on trees. You have to save it. You can't waste it all living from a life of lack. So remembering that we are energy and the law of attraction, this was all that my mother was creating, was more of a lack of. You can see how these limiting beliefs could impact your life. This could also explain why I started racking up debt as an adult in my early adult years, because again there could be a rebellion towards my mum for her way of living. I wanted to feel like I had something. Ironically, she used to log everything she spent, even down to a 20p Sun newspaper at the time. She never once, though, taught us kids about how to budget and forecast, you can see how these behaviours will always keep you in a lack of having things in your life. Now, by identifying these beliefs and seeing how they affected you, you can also identify where they came from. You can also see which archetypes are strong. So definitely the inner victim here. Life is happening to me. It is just reaffirming this is my life. I'm not deserving to have money. I live in a lack of. The memories of the past. If I scrimp and scrape, I can get by paying the bills, is reinforced because you've done that time and time again, and that becomes second nature. So your subconscious is remembering all the things that you've done in the past. You wake up in the morning feeling the lack of, so that memory is then reinforced into the next day, the next day, the next week, the next month, and you're still living the life of lack. So, like I said, reinforcing all the time. I live in a lack of. I have to work hard for a pittance in order to have money. Money doesn't come easy. And have a guess what? The universe would say, you want more of that? Here you go. So you may identify that your limiting beliefs have come from your parents, teachers, friends, family, work colleagues, social media, maybe even the news. It's all around you. You may have formed limiting beliefs from an early age, experienced early trauma. So once you've wrote your list of beliefs and you can identify where they came from, the next thing you can do is look at whose beliefs are these. So if you've grown up believing that money does not buy happiness, is it fair to say that we can assume that this concept has come from your parents? If this is the case, it's important to realise that these are not your beliefs. They are your parents' beliefs. They have just been imprinted and transferred to you, whether it was intentional or not. You have processed the information that has come from an authority figure and classified it as being true. This information has been passed on to the subconscious mind, and as a result, it creates a paradigm that money does not buy happiness. But if this was your parents' belief, could you accept that this is not necessarily your belief? And if it's not your belief, then you can let go of it and create your own belief. You may have seen for yourself that money can actually buy you happiness. It can buy you a house, pay the bills, leave you leftover money, buy a car, buy nice clothes, go out for a meal, attend social events that in turn can make you happy and full of smiles. Yet without realising it, you could have been battling with the belief that it doesn't create happiness and experience guilt instead when you've gone out for a meal or a few drinks or bought the Gucci handbag. Now this is the time to sit and ask yourself, what are your beliefs? If you're not sure, ask yourself, what would you like to believe? When can you prove that these beliefs are incorrect? It becomes easy to let go of them. Once you've created your new beliefs, it's time to start embedding them. So write them up in your best handwriting or type them up and print them out. And then stick it somewhere where you will see it every day. It could be like on the fridge door or the bathroom door, somewhere where you can read it every day. Because when you're reading it every day, the repetition will then transfer them to your long-term memory and subconscious mind. How can you modify your behaviour to match these beliefs? Can you treat yourself to something and not feel the guilt? What changes could you make? If you feel the limiting beliefs creeping back in, then you may need to say either in your mind or out loud, stop, these are not my beliefs, and reaffirm what your beliefs are. Are there any necessary tools or equipment that could help you with your beliefs? A savings account, learning about stocks and share investments, a budget planner or a journal to log everything in. So now you can identify a limiting belief or fear. Now you can establish where it came from and who created it. So let's look at your dream life. What are your limiting beliefs or fears that surround your dream life? So my dream life would consist of having a 7-figure business. But what are my limiting beliefs? My business won't take off. My business will stay small and I would have failed. How could I make 7 figures? I'm not that lucky. No one in my family is rich, so how could I be? People will laugh at me if I say that I'm manifesting my dream life. Magic doesn't exist, it's all made up. People will think I'm crazy, delusional, so I can't tell anyone. Is this another 5-minute wonder? People will say, I told you, if it failed. Yeah, that's a lot of limiting beliefs. All of these thoughts, all of these fears, all of these beliefs and worries have been created by me. The list you come up with has been constructed by you. Whether you've constructed them from past experiences, childhood, as an adult, from social media, or a film or box set you've watched, they all exist because of you. None of these fears or limiting beliefs are true. None of them are real. They are all an illusion because your reality is an illusion. So, ask yourself these 4 questions. Number 1, what is my belief? What if they are wrong? Ask yourself that. Number 2, how are these beliefs serving me? Number 3, what could I think of instead? And number 4, what if my new beliefs could be true? All that your fears and limiting beliefs are doing at the moment is highlighting that you are believing and ultimately keeping you exactly where you are. If you look at all the alternative beliefs that you've come up with that could be true, what impact could they have on you? How could these change your life? Could it create more confidence, power, make you unstoppable? By facing these beliefs and fears and challenging them, you are also creating ways of letting them go. And when you let them go, you welcome the new ones in. You're embracing your next level of potential. I always think a good way to stop fueling a fear or limiting belief is to challenge it. Ask yourself, what's the worst that could happen? So let's take the example I did earlier of a fear or worry that my business won't take off and be successful. What's the worst that could happen? I won't make sales. What's the worst that could happen? I would have to get paid work, but I already have a second job. So what's the worst that could happen? I'd have to increase my hours and then have less time on my business. What's the worst that could happen? I would have less time to find a way forward. So I would have to be concise in how I work. But, and here is the but, I have not failed. No one has died. I am still able to pay my bills. I just have to look for a new way forward. I would need to be creative and concise in my research and time, manage my time better, do what I need to do rather than sit there procrastinating, drinking coffee. So is this really a fear that should affect my life. Should it affect me getting my dream life? No. As they say, to fail is the first attempt in learning. So I could reflect on what I have done with the business. What worked? What didn't? What's new or trending? Could I source any investment? Who could help me? Are there any areas I could delegate to? So really and truly, is this something that I can let go of? Because actually, I can survive. I can still pay my bills and live to see another day. This is an unnecessary worry. I need to look at this like a bow and arrow. You have to pull the arrow back in order to propel forward. So if I have to take a step back, it is so that I can get it right and propel forward just like the arrow. Although this wouldn't be the outcome that I would want or desire, it would be a temporary solution until I can get there. By changing my perspective in how I saw this, also no longer makes me feel like I would be letting anyone down. And in fact, I see that trying to manifest what I want can still happen. I just need to keep trying, keep learning, because anything more than what is now is a small victory. I would be one step closer to unlocking the next level of my potential. I'm Jo Hamer, the owner of the Curvatures Boutique, and I hope this video has been insightful about your fears and limited beliefs and how to eliminate them. Thank you so much for watching my video, and be sure to tune in to the next video where we will be looking at manifesting your dream life.